has everyone read them, and can we take a vote on that? Does everyone agree with the minutes of the last meeting? All those in favour, please show. Yeah. Any against? Abstentions? One abstention. Right, we now move on to declarations of interest. Sorry, I missed that one out. Declarations of interest. Have we got any declarations of interest for the items on the agenda tonight? No declarations of interest. Right, we move on to item 4, funding considerations. We've got 6 funding considerations for this round. The first one is an investment of... Sorry, Councillor Harrison.
First of all, the 6 that are on there, I fully support each of them. But I've got questions about the finances when you move down to page 23. If you look at page 23, it mentions the round 1 investments. Now, it's got Castle and Crouch with £900, £650 and £550. The £550 shouldn't be £550, it should be £650 and come under Wickford Park Ward. The £900 and £650 are correct. But missing is the 875 Note Bridge, which was spent as well. If you remember, you had an addendum. The 936 in Wickford Park Ward should go to Wickford North Ward. Because in effect, the Shopgate Wednesdays is 936, and that's Shopgate under Wickford North. The Wickford Senior Citizens Club should be Nevenden Centre, and that's 650 under Castle and Crouch. But if you add the 875, that makes the column figures, all those underneath, incorrect. Then the other point I want to make is the rules changed since the meeting on the 5th of November. We ended up in November of £3,000 for Wickford, for the Friends of Wickford of the Wick Country Park, ended up as revenue. Because at that stage, we didn't know there was a cap of 4,800 on each ward. Remember? It was just open. Now that 3,000, if we're going to be consistent by agreeing the 6,000 tonight for the Friends of the Memorial Park, that 3,000 should be moved to capital. Because it's something that's going to last more than a year. It's what the council want to do with the Friends of the Wick Country Park in the park, exactly the same as what the Friends of the Memorial Park want to do with the council for that £6,000. So I would like to move on these figures to make sure they're correct, and also let the £3,000 last time for the Friends of the Wick Country Park move to capital away from revenue. Because £3,000 virtually wipes out, with the Christmas party, Wickford Park Ward's 4,800. So I'd like to move that 3,000 goes to capital. Otherwise, it's an anomaly, but you can't move the £6,000 for the Friends of the Memorial Park. You can't move that to revenue because there's not enough. There's only £4,800 for each ward.
Yeah, you're right, Councillor Harrison.
In what I've said, that makes those figures underneath incorrect when you start looking at round 2 requests. Mainly because they're in the wrong columns, and also the Note Bridge investment of 875 for their Christmas event wasn't put in, is not in there at all.
Could we have a comment from the officers, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, the Note Bridge, their funding got withdrawn because they were unable to comply with the conditions of the grant. So that's why that 875 is not on that sheet. And I take on board that the 3,000 for the Friends Memorial Park, remembering obviously capital projects can be paid from that revenue fund, but not the other way round. So obviously it's up to the area committee to decide whether they do want to move that over to capital, or it can stay under that the community private fund Wickford Park.
Councillor Harrison?
I propose, Chairman, that goes under capital, purely on the basis that reduces the revenue for Wickford Park Ward quite substantially by £3,000 otherwise. And as for this year, revenue can move over into next year for one time only. It will benefit Wickford Park Ward, otherwise there's very little money available for Wickford Park Ward. Thank you.
Councillor Sargent?
Yes, Chairman. The £875, as the officer has said, couldn't be spent because it wasn't meeting with the criteria. So what happens about that money? Are we able to spend it in Notebridge on something else? Because I did speak to the group and ask them if there was something else that they wanted for the scheme, the sheltered housing scheme, because that's where that money was going to be spent. So are we able to provide something for them if that's what their wishes are?
Have we got a comment from the officer?
Yes, so the money went back into the pot, Councillor. I think as how it's spent moving forward, I think that's the decision for the committee. Clearly, we would need a compliant project for us to be able to award that to. But should the committee seek to find a compliant project for that scheme, then we would bring it through at the next meeting, I would presume.
Yeah, just to confirm, that meeting is for the ward, it's not for Notebridge, it's for the whole Crouch and Carston ward. So yeah, as long as a scheme comes forward, then we can use that £875 for that, yeah. Are you happy now, Councillor?
No, Chairman, I just moved that we move the £3,000 from Wickford Park Ward revenue to capital.
And have you got a seconder?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All those in favour, please show. All those against? Abstentions? Two abstentions. So can that be corrected? Yeah? Can that be corrected by the officers, yeah? Yeah.
I think it's less corrected, but we can move it. Ultimately, that decision was made at that time under the terms of the conditions. Then I think it's a wise move now, knowing we can do so. So yeah, we'll move it if that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I understand the rules have slightly changed since that meeting, yeah, so, yeah, okay. So we now go on to the funding considerations. And as I said before, the first funding consideration is a 1,500 investment for the delivery of the crunch. I'm going to pass over to the officers to introduce it.
It is. Thank you very much. Yes, so item 1 is the proposition for a £1,500 investment for the delivery of a crunch service within the area committee. The area committee will know all about the crunches. We spoke about them last time we were here, and I'm pleased to say that a series of crunches took place all across the borough at that time, which were again really well received. We are in the process of touring all of the area committees again and seeking whether they would all like to invest again in another crunch service. This time the crunch service has been identified, and I think it was discussed at the last time we met, whether this one could be within the Crays Hill region of the borough, and the proposal is that this one is to take place at Crays Hill Recreation Ground. And we have, when the report was written, a date wasn't available, but I think subsequently it has been.
29th of March.
And that is the 29th of March. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Right, so is everyone in agreement? Could we Councillor,
Can I amend the area, Chairman, to Note Bridge rather than Craig's Hill, please?
Sorry, that's probably me. I've read Crazy because it says Crazy Hill Recreation Ground. That's not actually in the report. Apology, I should have said no bridge.
It's probably right. I mean, I know, but I mean, we would prefer it to go to Note Bridge.
well, actually, it was decided that the second one will go to Craig's Hill because it's an easier access for the environmental services people and the crunch people. So that was where we decided. But we can vote on it if you want.
Chair, I'll second that.
Can I just ask
recommendation,
where
please.
in Note Bridge then?
Councillor Harrison.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. I thought initially Crazy Hill Recreation Ground is a little bit out of the way in terms of density of population for people who want to bring stuff. And if we had one on the Wick in Wickford last time, I see no reason why it shouldn't be one in Note Bridge.
Yes, officer.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the crunch sites that we've deployed over the last year, since the crunch service has come back, operationally we have to run it in a slightly different way to how it was run previously. It used to just be a single vehicle in a location. We now have a number of different pieces of legislation we have to comply with when running a crunch, which means we have to run multiple vehicles, which does take up a larger space. So operationally, we need to make sure that we've got somewhere suitable to run that. My fear around Coppice Lane is that there was a number of vehicles. It used to be in the car parky bit at the middle outside the shop, didn't it? Or on the lay-by, or did we use in the community centre car park?
It used to go
Along the road.
Yeah, it used to go further up the road rather than right outside the community centre, but it was really good place because people could come along and park in the spaces.
If I'm okay to come back in at this point, Chairman, I think that what I would say is we're obviously subject to operational suitability. I would need a member of my refuse collection team to survey a site just to make sure we've got the right capacity to hold it safely, make sure there's the right opportunities for vehicles to get in and out safely without, obviously risk to public or staff. But obviously the location, subject to those caveats, would need to be operationally agreed with us. So I would, if I may be so bold, probably the recommendation is to endorse your priority order of sites, subject to operational confirmation of where they be held. And obviously, if the decision's made to hold it, then I can take that back to the team and then feed that back to members of this committee.
Thank you. Yeah, my opinion is it should stay at Craig's Hill for this one time, and then perhaps next time we should move it. But we've got to take a vote on it because Councillor Sargent has got a seconder. So, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chairman. I think what Councillor Sargent and her seconder have said is that they want it moved to Note Bridge, and James has just confirmed that his officers will seek the best location. And I think actually this is the problem with doing it on such an ad hoc basis, that we're sort of rushing around trying to find the best location, pitting wards against each other. So I think I'm fully in support of Councillor Sargent and Myers' motion, and I hope the committee will support moving it to Note Bridge.
Thank you for that. Right, we've got a motion to change it to Note Bridge. All those in favour, please show. Okay, all those against? No abstentions, so yeah, we'll move it to Note Bridge subject to the surveyor. Yeah, yeah. That's the first funding condition for the 29th of March. Subject to surveyor, the crunch will be at Noak Bridge. The second one is a £1,000 investment for a purchase and installation of a bench on Netherden Road from the Believe in Wickford Fund. This will be outside Eve Bell, so we'll pass that to the officer.
I think this one. I'll be quick. I think this one came up last time as well, and there was we needed some clarity, to seek some clarity in relation to who owned the land, and was there a bench that was sat somewhere in a lockup somewhere. Officers have worked during this period, so thank you very much to the officers behind me to agree a site with the landowner. It will be on, for all intents and purposes, on the public realm, and they're comfortable with supporting the committee with installing this outside of the Eve Bell care home.
Okay, thank you for that. Has anyone got any comments? Councillor?
Can I just ask again? I didn't quite understand the location.
Yeah, the location is where the Eve Bell care home is. There's fencing along there, and they're looking at. I've spoken to Rumble Care Homes, the corporate estates manager, and it will be about identifying somewhere along. There's a small level of grass verge in front, so it will be somewhere along there. So it would be a matter of agreeing exactly where along there. Formerly, the bench had sat behind where the fence is now, so it can't be reinstated where it previously was. But they've said in principle they have no issue with it, but it'd be a matter of actually, you know, putting the drawings and identifying exactly where it will be. But there is still some grass verge in front of their fencing.
Is that okay?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chairman. But it would be good if we were told the exact location when it's agreed. Thank you.
It's exactly where there was a bench a few years ago. I mean, it's just putting one back where there was one before.
The officer said it can't go back where it was once.
Councillor Myers?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, where that fence is and where they've sort of reclaimed land for their own outside sensory garden area, where the residents there actually do some pruning and do some gardening work. The grass verge out the front where this is proposed isn't particularly large, so I just wondered whether or not Essex Highways have been consulted on whether or not it may impeach onto the pavement at Eve Bell, rather than just the landowner being Eve Bell.
We've got a comment on that?
I spoke to the corporate estates and to highways to identify where the grass verge fell, and they were clear that it didn't fall under highways, and that it was identified that it was Runwood Homes. So I've been liaising directly with them, but obviously we'll need to establish, you know, exactly how far the bench is going to come out. But there is a grass verge in front of their fence, but that was the discussion that I'd had with the corporate estates manager, was that exact location would need to be agreed where it would be sited along the front.
Councillor Myers?
Thank you. Whilst supportive of a bench in that location, because obviously there was one before now taken out, obviously now there's concerns about whether it will be actually approved to be put in without corporate estates giving a full agreement that it can be placed there. Obviously there are issues here with the pavement on that site as well, and how big that grass verge is, because obviously it is in our ward in Wickford. I know how large that grass verge is, so I'd like to request we defer this before more information comes from highways about whether or not they can look at the site, whether or not we can just plant a bench on it rather than just onto the pavement and the grass verge.
Yeah. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Chairman. Rather than defer it, can I suggest we agree it on the basis similarly, as we agreed 875 for Note Bridge and it wasn't spent, and when we come back in the March meeting, we'll know by then whether or not it's been allowed. And if it is allowed, it can be put in. If it's not, that £1,000 goes back in the pot.
Yeah. Right.
So for clarity, the permission's been given. It's Eve Bell's. We've checked with that. It's not part of the Highway Authority. It's Eve Bell's land. Corporate Estates team have agreed that. Eve Bell have agreed for one to go in along that verge, which is probably 20 metres long or something. It's just identifying the exact spot of it. So it's going to be somewhere within that 20 metres or so. So I don't think it's a major risk.
Councillor Sargent, who's
Is it going to be in a location, Grant, where you're going to get, if it's near a care home, you're going to get a nice lot of people, you know, take rest in it? That's all I care about, that it's going to be well used. Mm. And if that is the perfect location, then I've got no objection. Thank you.
Councillor Myers?
My original issue still stands. I mean, the grass verge may be 20 metres long, but it's not that wide. So there is pavement that the bench may encroach onto in terms of its width. So that will have to be looked into. So despite saying that the grass verge is not owned by Essex Highways, the pavement certainly is. So I did ask for this to be deferred to later, and I do have a seconder, so that will require a vote.
So, yeah, so you've asked for it to be deferred. So all those in favour of deferring this until the next meeting, please show. All those against, please show. Abstentions? One abstention. Right, so I got the casting vote and I put it with my original vote. Yeah. So we'll carry on and we'll vote. We'll now vote on having that in that location, subject to the survey and various things. So all those in favour, please show. Got that? All those against? Abstentions? That's carried. So that's carried. So the bench will be installed subject to the surveys and permissions and various. Right. The third item is investment in the purchase of an installation of another bench at the Doshill Drive, Birch Green area from the Believing Basildon Fund for Wickford. Officer.
Yep, again, just very briefly, it's as you explained, Chair. As I understand it, this is a proposal for the installation of a bench in this area, which is next to a children's play area. And has been requested through councillors on the basis it will provide a pleasant place for people to take a seat whilst their children enjoy access to the play area. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Can I move, Chair, that we accept that one? There was one there many years ago in that area.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks. I understand the proposal to reintroduce it, but if you look at the area in which it sits, with a property essentially behind it to each side of it, I think we just have to be careful that we don't invite people to loiter there late into the evening, which is why some benches were actually removed. And that's why if you walk, I don't know, 5 minutes down the boardwalk, you'll see there's no bench at the other play area behind Roding Way. And I think what we've got to look at is, firstly, have the council spoken to the police to ensure that when there is issues, which there will be, and I heard there was an issue tonight in that location of criminal behaviour, that we're not inviting it to be more persistent because they'll have somewhere to sit. So I think unless the council can confirm to me now that they've sought the appropriate reassurances from the police, that it won't be bothering my constituents who wish to have a peaceful night's sleep, or even those on a night shift. So unless my first question will be, have we had the reassurances that they'll be regularly patrolling the Broadwalk first? And I've got another one after that.
That's not a conversation we would normally have with the police when we're talking about putting a bench in. It's not something I've ever experienced previously, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Thanks, Grant. It's just the problem of when you're putting it there is issues. I've been contacted by many constituents about issues along there, and what we're doing is we're inviting a permanent place for them to sit, or of course stand on it. So I think we just have to be extremely careful about why we're putting it there, and I can't really, and unless someone can assure me that either Ian and Debbie, whose jobs have now been saved, or somebody else is going to be patrolling that, I think there's probably a better use for that £1,000 in that area.
Councillor Myers?
Thank you. I reiterate the point about sort of antisocial behaviour. Mr Baker will know about my communications over the last couple of years or so about the benches in Netherden Park, where they are sitting behind people's residences, and we got one removed because of consistent antisocial behaviour. I do know people who live on those houses behind Dose Hill Drive who've had in the past reported and put forward accusations of persistent antisocial behaviour late into the evening. I think a bench in this location would perhaps exacerbate that particular issue going forwards. So whilst I do appreciate that people with recreation and not taking part in any criminality would like somewhere to rest, there is always the issue of a balancing act of whether the bench in this location is correct, or whether it would be better suited somewhere else away from the play area.
Right, well, yeah, I agree. I see where you're coming from, and as you say, it's a balancing act. But do we give in to antisocial behaviour all the time, or do we allow people to sit there while their children in the summer are playing on the? It's a balancing act, and that's for people to decide on. So if there's no more comments, we'll have a vote on it. All those in favour of the bench, please show. All those against? Abstentions? So that was lost, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yep, so that bench will not be installed at this time. The fourth item is £6,000 investment for the Friends of Memorial Park from the Believe in Basden Fund. I'll pass it over to the officer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, last time we were here, this item was discussed as a possible forward plan item. Very pleased to see the colleagues in James's service have worked hard on this since that point. This is proposed funding for the Friends of Wickford Memorial Park, who many of the group will know do excellent work over in the beautiful Wickford Memorial Park. The proposal is for the funding to go towards a stumpery or a bog garden to improve further the biodiversity in Wickford Memorial Park, which has been a huge undertaking over a number of years. I'm pleased that Rob Baker joins us today, who has been so fundamental to doing much of that work with many of his officers, including Josh, who spoke last time. The proposal here is for the Friends of Wickford Memorial Park to work alongside the council's parks team to enable this, and the £6,000 will support this work to happen, providing kind of damp, shady plants, which is a great food source for wildlife, and as I say, just to further enhance the biodiversity in the park, supporting the Friends of Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Did Rob Baker want to say any more, or is there any more to say on it?
I think Grant's answered it very well. It's an area of wetland within the park already, and the project would have just enhanced that area as more of an attraction, but equally increasing the biodiversity within that area.
Thank you for that. Any comments? Councillor Brockman?
Yeah, I've got no nothing against this at all and fully support the whole thing. It's a wonderful initiative, so I'm right behind it. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chairman. I think what the work of the Friends of the Memorial Park, same for the Wick Country Park, do a phenomenal job, and they rack up a lot of hours in that Memorial Park. And I think if anyone hasn't gone on it who's recently been elected into office should really take a guided tour around the park and just see how much work they've done. I didn't know just how much they'd actually put into it, particularly with the Jubilee Gardens. I think it's Mount Road, that side. But I was surprised by just how much it had gone into it. And I think this really sort of builds on the work we've done over a number of years in this park. Just in the last budget, £400 went in for their planting and 3,000 went in for their planting. So this is now nearly £10,000. It's a shame we can't give them that £600 to make it around 10. But it's sort of a lot of money's gone in, and I think it's enjoyable for everyone. And I look forward to seeing them at the next meeting to showcase their excellent work.
Councillor Myers.
Yeah, and of course, as the main park of Wickford Town, there's also been a lot of work's been done over there, especially with sites such as Beauchamps Meadows and the orchards and the Jubilee gardens they put in, as Councillor Jeffrey mentioned. They do fantastic work over there, continuously looking after the spaces that they have, with the trails they've got and the little wooden animal sculptures that they've put in. So I think this will be a welcome addition to the Wickford Memorial Park, and I'll support it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's an excellent idea. The work the Friends do is very, very important, and I'm quite proud that they exist, because I think Rob will remember, you were at the meeting when we sat down in the town gate with Kim and some others and the Friends of Lake Meadows, and suggested that they start up Friends of Memorial Park, and the ball started rolling, and from where it's gone since, it's fantastic. And also the benefits which the Neighbourhood and Public Spaces Committee did when they acquired Beauchamps Field, in effect, from the school, because the school was shutting up, has brought a fantastic area to Wickford Park now, and it now goes in relation to Giddings Copse, and people have got ideas for walks through to the River Crouch on the other side of Battlesbridge. That's probably the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Right, if there's no more speakers, we'll take a vote. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous for a change. Okay. So that passed. So that investment will happen. Right. Number 5 is a £500 investment to build a duck landing platform on Hanley Green from the Believe in Basildon Fund.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's as you explained it, really. Again, this is one of the ones where officers have had to do a bit of work in relation to understanding or discussing with the landowners. It's not in the council's ownership. The pond itself is part of a responsibility for a care home over on the site. But I'm very pleased for the work Colleen has done, and give her my thanks in liaising with the care home and getting the confirmation from them that should the committee seek to fund it, then they would absolutely support the duck landing pond being installed. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we, Councillor Sergeant?
Yes, this is this is a community project. It is, as the officer said, it isn't in the land isn't in the council's ownership, but there's a management committee that I believe is a management group that's been asked, and they've given the permission. And there's other work that's going on. The parish council have put some money into the pond as well. So I would appreciate if people would support this project this evening, because the parish council put a duck landing board on the Durban Lane pond, which Rob helped us with, and they're absolutely fantastic, because you know, they're always going on there. They're very well used, probably more so than the duck houses. So very much in support. Thank you, Chairman.
Did you want to speak, Councillor Harrison?
I said agreed.
If there's no more speakers, can we take a vote? All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. So now we're on to item number 6 of the matters for consideration. £500 towards the purchase and installation of a Queen Elizabeth II memorial bench in the Ramsden Craze War Memorial from the Believe in Basildon Fund. This is in addition to the £1,000 we had for the ordinary bench. This is just because they wanted a flasher bench there in line with the War Memorial at Craze Hill. No, it's not. It's in addition. It's addition. It's addition. It's got. I don't know, but I'll get the officer to explain. Quiet. One speaker at a time, please.
The Queen Elizabeth II Memorial Bench, it's a wooden bench, and I think the suggestion was that it would be more fitting. I understand, Councillor Ball, that there is Essex are doing some work there as well, aren't they? And yeah, it was an additional amount of money to purchase a bench, and it has carving along the back. So yeah, it's just they thought it was more suitable, I think.
Councillor Brockman.
Yeah, come on. Who own up? Who proposed this? Which one of you? Come on, hands up.
Me.
Who is it?
Me.
You. Dickhead.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so obviously the bench that was approved then went out to the Craze Hill Parish Council, Ramsden Craze Parish Council, who had some feedback on it and about the suitability of being near to a very prominent war memorial along London Road, and therefore an increase in a more robust and better designed bench is more fitting for that location than just ones that we normally put into parks. So the additional bench is another £500 on top. Essex, as the officer said, are doing some works over there with some tree planting as well, with some whips and things. So I'm supportive of this.
Well put, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Sargent.
Yes, the parish council, they've put in for a licence, because you need a licence to put it on the land. So I'm very much in support of it as well, because I do understand that it would need to be a bit more substantial because of the actual area where it's going.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else got any comments? So can we vote?
Just ask the question, whose land is it?
It's County Council's land, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe. Any other comments? Right, we'll take a vote. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Let's finish the funding considerations. We now go on to the, we got a presentation from the Street Cleansing and Pride team led by James Hendry. James, over to you.
Have we not got some other funding, some pond ones for Note Bridge, Coppice Lane?
No, it's a boundary one next to it.
That comes on the next one.
Oh, what is that for the next?
Yeah, it's for the next committee, Councillor.
Yes, Councillor. Councillor, it's for the March meeting.
Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, just regarding the Wickford Town Football Club, did I miss the vote for that, or is that in March meeting as well?
That's for the March meeting.
That's March,
meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
So if we now go on to the item number 5, street cleansing and the Pride team. Over to you, James.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, councillors. Thanks for inviting us this evening and allowing us to come along and talk to you. So, appreciate there's a couple of new councillors in the room who haven't had the opportunity to meet yet. My name's James Hendry. I'm the Assistant Director for Environment, Climate Change and Open Spaces. At the previous meeting of this area committee, you were joined by 2 members of my team, Mark Aldridge and David Keeble, who talked about the Pride team and cleansing service and gave you a good overview of that, hopefully. And I know that there was some good questions and good conversation that was held. Following on from and building on the work that we've been doing, I've really come along tonight to talk about a bit of an update on what's happening in the service and to introduce some new team members and new team members, some of whom are already been referenced tonight, so we've let the cat out of the bag there. They're not new team members, but I'll explain more in due course. So, following a change in my role last year, I looked at the team that I had and the way that we were deployed across a number of service areas and looking at ways of closely aligning the way in which we deliver our street cleansing, Pride team services and the services with our communities, with neighbourhoods, and that aligns to a lot of the things that you've been talking about as an area committee tonight. Essentially, I've moved to a model where I've split the services that are based out of Barley Downs Depot, so that includes a lot of the front-facing services which are delivered out of my remit into 2. There are ones which are delivered in a consistent way across the borough, which we call borough operations, things like waste and recycling. That includes environmental enforcement and those things, so they're delivered uniformly across the borough. And then there are services which are delivered at the heart of our neighbourhoods, and they include things like street cleansing, grounds maintenance, the parks, the open spaces, the things that we all enjoy. Because for me, those services represent the critical things when you leave your house in the morning, when you're visiting a park, when you're visiting an open space. They all exist within neighbourhoods, and that's something which I think touches on. We all look after. We all live in houses. We all live in roads. We all visit the areas around us, and having that locality and the services that overlay against that are important to us, and clearly, based on the conversations we've had tonight and at previous meetings, important to yourselves as an area committee and as ward councillors. So, essentially, what I've done with the cleansing and Pride teams is move those together under one overall team, and I'm pleased to be joined by Rob Baker, who's going to talk a bit more around a change in his role. Rob is looking after the neighbourhood services for me, and I've split the cleansing and Pride teams under named supervisors. So we've gone back into a form of area-based working. Cleansing and Pride teams will be aligned to each of the areas of the borough, and members of my team will be coming back to this committee in future to give you updates on progress of what's happening in their services in each of our areas. Unfortunately, obviously, Mark was at the previous meeting. Mark is your Wickford and Crouch area supervisor. So Mark Aldridge has a team of people on the ground. Mark also looks after 1 or 2 of the teams which operate across the borough. So things like the graffiti team, main roads teams, street sweepers and things like that. We've kept those teams together operationally, but really this is about making sure that we've got a team that's dedicated to each of the neighbourhoods across the borough, is aware and plugged in and aware of the issues on the ground and able to work through those. And part of what we'll take you through tonight is how you can keep in touch, how we will keep in touch with you. Part of what led to this change was a move, particularly on our street cleansing side, where we'd be in an area, say for Wickford or Noak Bridge, for example, the day after collection day, where we'd go through, perform a high-level litter pick, and it was we wouldn't be going back into that area until a week afterwards. Whereas the idea of moving into a neighbourhood is to say, well, actually, there should be a priority of things that we take on, a programme of works that you can help to shape and have visibility over, and also that ability to say, well, rather than walking down the same road every week, if it doesn't need litter picking every week, to bring it up to the requisite standard, we should be using our time to do other works in the area. So ultimately, there is only a finite pot of resources. I've only got so many team members, but by bringing them together and having somebody named who will be looking after your areas, I'm hoping that brings a much closer responsibility and accountability between the team members who are delivering those great services for you day in, day out, and what you're expecting to see. So there's plenty of opportunity to ask questions at the end, but I will hand over to Rob, as I say, who's taken on responsibility for the neighbourhood supervisors across the borough, who will give you a bit more around his plans for the service moving forward, and the things that we're going to be working on this year, and more importantly, how there is an opportunity for members of this committee, and we'll be doing the rounds around this round of area committees and delivering the same message, but there's plenty of opportunity for yourselves as ward councillors and as an area committee to help to shape and influence and provide us with some feedback on where we're going, particularly around street cleansing. And pride teams, within Rob's role, it does include the grounds maintenance service and parks and open spaces, and there will be more updates on that to come throughout the year. So it's the start of a conversation, it's not the end of a conversation, but it does build on the background that Mark and David presented at the last meeting around the pride team works and that have taken place already. So over to Rob.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, introducing myself. With me, I forgot to. So many of you already know me as the Parks and Countryside Manager for many years. But as James says, I've now taken on Manager of Neighbourhood Services, and not moving far away from what I've always been passionate about is the parks of the borough. Actually, my background, I started here in street cleansing in 1986. So I've never moved far away from that service. The services that I'm now responsible for are very much where I've been working in and around all my career, and my whole career has been spent at Basildon Council. This is the next step. It's an exciting challenge. And you know, I look for. It's a huge challenge, looking after the borough from an environment side, but it's one I relish and look forward to, and look forward to working with the area committees to deliver the best we can within across the whole of the borough, but equally within priority areas. Just sort of to set the scene. I've been in post 2 weeks now. It's been busy meeting the teams and really setting out my plan for changing the way we work, some of the ways we work. Ultimately, that means I'm reviewing everything at this stage. As on the screen, it says getting the basics right, and that's where we've got to start. So we're currently starting that review of reviewing all our routes, all our operations around the borough from a street cleansing. That will result in route mapping, and that's not to say that everywhere is done incorrectly at this time, but it's part of that review. We will also find areas that need a higher level of cleansing, and also we want to impact areas as well as part of that rollout of those new routes. You know, and using shop fronts as an example, that's where predominantly people are going to from their homes to the shops. So they're areas that we're going to target first and roll out across the borough in a big operation to clean up our shops and put good cyclical maintenance in behind it to keep on top of that. We'll be judged upon the 1990 Environmental Protection Act, which is graded by the EPA in A, B, C or D. Within that, it gives you certain timescales for return on a clean-up. So If it falls to a grade B, you have a certain amount of hours, days, dependent on the zone that you're in, as to how long it takes how long it should take for you to get back, to bring that back to an A standard or at least B. The implementation of those new routes, I aim to do that around May. So we've set a plan out across the year, and I'd like to come back at future meetings in the next month or so, and I can update you on that plan and how that's progressed and our next steps. So that's really street cleansing. Just on the grounds maintenance, currently we're with our contract ID Verdi. That goes until April 2026, where a decision will be made. So in the coming months, a decision will be made about the next steps or the change of any approach that we might take. There are 3 options for that approach. One is a lactose service where we create basically a grounds maintenance company, an outsourcing, which is direct outsourcing the same as we have, or bringing that back in-house. Either way, we've through consultation, we've found that we want a balanced approach. We've got to be adaptable. Our environment's changing. It's never kind to us as parks and countryside and gardeners. It's always catching us out. It's forever changing, and we have to be adaptable. We'd like to align that with area specifics around habitat management. So our resources are programmed to go in areas where, when we talk about the Beauchamps Meadows, we can relax maintenance and cut areas of recreation to get that right balance. And as I say, we're currently putting that plan in place. My plan stretches all the way through to 2026 in whatever decision is made with the grounds maintenance department as to what we implement, but my plan is to work towards that with this area-based team. And the implementation of anything that we do of the grounds maintenance will be in April 2026. Just to cover, it's really picking up on what James has really covered. It's the team. My team is 4 area supervisors, and Mark Aldridge is the area supervisor for this ward. Part of our teams, it's built up of mechanical sweeping, beat sweepers, mobile teams, graffiti teams, and pride teams. So I won't go any further. It is only 2 weeks that I've been here. We've started making changes already within that team. Look forward to working with the committees to improve the areas where we can. Any questions?
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, you are welcome back any time to give us an update to a future meeting. First question from Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chairman. If you don't mind, it would be sort of sequential. I'll ask it one at a time. Rob, you said about your graffiti teams, but if you look along the Netherden Road, every time I report the bus stop, say outside Wych Elm House or opposite or down by Park Drive, it's a permanent feature. And I just think perhaps there's an issue of council inquiries not quite feeding back what I'm requesting, or unless they're that quick to put it back. But I'm not seeing a change, and this is maybe a feedback, is particularly with the graffiti, it's starting to make the town, particularly in that part, look untidy. And it just needs perhaps your team to go in there and blitz all of Netherden Road with the graffiti, because it's everywhere. Even seeing it on street signs now, they've run out of bus stops. So it's just, if you can, direct your team, hopefully as soon as possible, just to tidy up those bus stops along the Netherden Road / High Street. Because I know it changes to the High Street by Wych Elm House. And if you can, that's my first point.
Thank you, Councillor. So I think that the bus stops, by and large, are owned by Essex County Council along there, which we don't have authority to remove the graffiti from. But what we can do is we can ask for the graffiti team to have a look up and down Nevenden Road, and anything that is within our control to remove, we will. We obviously do liaise with you know, the number of the groups in Wickford around removing graffiti, and we can contact Essex County Council on that. But if it's their bus stop, it's, you know, we don't have authority to remove the graffiti from there. But I will ask a team to have a look at Nevenden Road.
Thanks. It was just whenever I've put it in, you've always emailed back and said we've cleared it. So that was why I was just chasing that up. Moving on to particularly bin emptying with the neighbourhood. I know this is a point I've always said to you, James, about the 2 times a week, Monday to Friday. And I think perhaps budget allowing for the administration and others in the administration here is just, can we increase the number of days? Because since the new year, every weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday, I'm getting a message say, oh, the bin's overflowing. And you will see where you'll know where I'm talking about because we've discussed it before.
Which bins?
So the ones I'm talking about need more frequent attention, and I just think I don't want my constituents having to walk past either the dog poo bins overflowing, so now the dog poo bags are going into the full bin further up, and it's just going in the bushes. And I think that's the thing of, if you can, just give me some reassurance, can you actually tweak that instead of Monday to Friday, maybe Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, so that you get the complete coverage, so there's not a full bin, because it's a hot spot, so it'll be a run of weeks, and then it will be fine, then it'll be another run of weeks. And I just think that resource, it's only, say, 52 days extra a year, is just trying to get that resource in, so that they're not seeing it overflowing all the time.
I think, and I'll bring Rob in a bit around the rotors and the operational detail on here, but I think part of what's more interesting for me is that where we are moving to a much more data-led service in a way that we've been operating on paper in the past and roots on people's heads, that they know that they've got to go to that one on one day, and then getting programmed into those things is actually having a bit more smart technology out there, things like sensors in the bins, compactor bins, and having the frequency having the ability to know when we're going to be, some routes are going to be busier than others. I think I mentioned it during the presentation, we've got a finite amount of resource, 52 days extra. If I've got to move those 52 days, they've got to come away from somewhere else. So the difficulty is, where do I move that from without creating a problem elsewhere? So part of what I'd like to see within the service moving forward, and part of the aims of what we're trying to put in place across some of the areas in my service at the moment, is greater access to data, so I know I can put my teams where they need to be, not where they think they need to be. Rob mentioned it and I mentioned it in the presentation, we don't want our teams mechanically sweeping streets if they don't need it. So it's not a case of saying, well, every 4 weeks we'll go through and sweep your road. We will sweep your road up to the standard as it's needed. But we've got to go on a bit of a journey here, and I think that's what Rob talked about, and I'll bring you in a second around your route mapping and the work that he's doing in that space to make sure that we've got teams in the right space at the right time. Part of that is going to be about looking to make sure we've got the right technology out there to inform us. But then part of this is going to be about having a fixed team working in that area, so they know the places, they know the hot spots, they know what's going to be coming up before it's a problem. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, James. I think that's exactly what I set out to do as part of standard setting, looking at bins and the frequency of emptying. Some bins, unfortunately, the use is abused by some. We need to look at that and look at other ways that we can deal with that. But certainly, for many years, we in the borough, we haven't even known how many bins we have in the borough. We've actually introduced an app just recently where now we know exactly where all our bins are in the borough. That is a step forward to our communications, where we can directly, if that bin is reported, it will go directly to a crew. That's where we want to get, that's the journey we're going on. But frequency is certainly part of the route mapping that we'll do. And You know, it is going to be the data that tells us where we need to apply the frequency. That's very much part of the discussions I've had only today with the team is about bins. It's a bit of a switch from biodiversity to bins, but as I said, it's one I'm enjoying at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that, and perhaps we could take it offline so I can discuss in more detail where I might think there'd be more sort of higher priority. And just the next point is, I know obviously we've gone over graffiti, particularly how that can strain, but the next point is the public bins, one by the Netherden shops and one on Silver Island Way. All the time I'm seeing dump bags, dump rubbish, the bin being moved out the way. It's sort of like magical chairs with the bin by the Netherden shops. And I think that's not a satisfactory environment for my constituents to have to walk by. Sometimes I've seen pictures where it's taking up 3 or 4 parking spaces on Silver Island Way. So if you can, just with your team, review with some focus just the Silver Island Way and the Netherden. I can't speak for other parts, but maybe Shotgate Park's probably got the same issue, but it's just those areas all the time, and I've raised this with James, is something will need to be looked at. My hope is that there's a camera that goes up and you can find who's dumping it. But if not, something needs to be looked at and aggressively considered, because it just invites rats how much stuff's dumped there. And obviously we have to work with the landowner there. But it just but it just can't be left in that condition.
James?
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously, you've made me aware of some of the specifics, but to talk in general, definitely please let us know. Obviously, any evidence of people who are undertaking the depositing of waste there will help our enforcement teams. We do clear it, we do monitor it. The more reports we get, the higher up that means that it becomes a bit of a hot spot for our enforcement teams to monitor. Please continue to let us know that, and we shall keep undertaking the work that we're doing there. But thank you.
Yeah, finished. Okay, Councillor Sargent, did you want questions?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Rob and James, for the update on the service. I think it's important that we do actually know, and it would be good for updates as they go along. Rob, I think you are, Rob's been an excellent officer. We've known, most of us that have been here for some time have known him for years, and we've got so cosy with him being in Parks and Countrysides. Now to see him dealing with the rubbish. But I mean, I'll ask if you can answer that last. Who's going to do, who's on Parks and Countrysides now? But now that you're with us you'll get to know us a little bit more, Rob, because we are always complaining. Never stop complaining. One, I'll give you some of my real bugbears is the recycling bins, and James knows all about this. Particularly the ones at Note Bridge, because they're on leased community association land, and I just get so fed up with the way they are abused. That people are even putting food in between. I mean, I sent Rob the picture. James a picture last week, food in between trolleys. I mean, it's just disgusting. So that is a hot spot. Then there's the bins in general that's been spoken about. People are getting very, very lazy. They are just using those neighbourhood bins to put their rubbish around. And I think that's why they're all getting overflowing. And there's no way you can put cameras around them, but it really is bad practice for them. And we're never going to catch them. I don't know how that is dealt with, but there's just more and more. And even on our parish council website, there's pictures of rubbish dumping around the area. The feeling of the community is that there is more rubbish dumping going on. So that's just another point. Another one of my hotspots is the lay-by in Oak Road. That is forever being dumped on. The one by the Belvedere, that is something that really upsets the people of Oak Road. You know, the continual dumping there. And when you spoke about the shops, I'm glad, Rob, that that's on your radar as well, because it was only, I believe, last week where the bin by my local shop was so overflowing, the rubbish was going into the shop. I mean, I told James it did get sorted out, but it's not good when you've got the rubbish going into it, because, you know, that's just proving how bad that is. And sometimes, as you've said yourself, a lot of it is abuse of people using those bins, because realistically they shouldn't be full up to that degree, because it's outside a shop. They should be taking some rubbish. But have I got it right that the bins will now be collected twice weekly, neighbourhood bins?
Thank you, Councillor. So I think it depends on the location. The location frequency varies depending on the need. We have got over 1,600 litter and dog bins across the borough, so you're never far away from one. There's no excuse to leave stuff around there. There's no excuse to do that. And obviously we have got a number of hard-working teams that operate across the borough. I think that we're straying into some of the things that aren't within Rob's remit around enforcement and the approach to that. And I know, obviously, Councillor Myers was at policy last night with the revised policy for waste and recycling, which includes a section on enforcement. That's going to the Council's Cabinet next month for adoption. That includes a whole section on enforcement and our approach to that. So I think it's slightly outside of definitely Rob's remit to manage that, but that is probably a question to raise through that channel. But I don't know if you wanted to talk more about anything.
Thanks, Councillor. When just sorting them bins alone, as part of the route mapping, we've trialled the compactor bins, and one of my views is if it's an area where we have a higher level of usage of the litter bin, which is great, but there isn't the need to maybe cleanse the street or the approach to it or all that road, that would be a good case for putting a compactor bin, so that we didn't have to send someone there twice a week using that vehicle, taking that time away just to go to a bin. So part of that route mapping, if we're finding areas where we're going to a bin just to go to a bin, then I might be coming back to this committee to ask, say, if we can fund some compactor bins for me. But they are options that we could look at. But that's part of that route mapping and that review that we'll be putting in place over the next coming weeks.
Thank you for that. Any more? Have you?
Sorry, can I just follow on?
Yeah.
I know what I've said. I'm just saying it as an excuse. The bins are bad, but I'm just saying as well is I think people have got lazy, and it's good to know that enforcement is coming along. But can I just know who's doing parks and countrysides?
Thank you. Obviously, Rob, as he said, he's only in his second week in the role. We're working on the gaps within Rob's team, and further updates I think will be provided in due course. But we've not. Yeah, we will have a gap there. Rob's only moved into the role 2 weeks ago, so we're looking at what gaps we've got in Rob's team and where we need to maybe fill some gaps in moving forward. So it's early days, but we shall keep everybody updated.
Councillor Sargent.
On that point, Chairman, I understand that, but I mean, I think it would be good if we could bring to this committee at some stage the improvements to our parks, because there was an implementation of park improvements where all the equipment was being replaced, and there were two in Oakbridge and Ramsden that were due to be done. I believe it was this year and maybe this year and next year. and we don't know where we are with those, only the fact that one of them has been passed over to a developer. But I mean, it would be good if we could know in the future what's happening to all those improvements, because we've got a big award now, and so if we can put that on the agenda.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that. Okay, we'll put that on the work programme, if you can note that. Oh, yeah. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Rob, to be honest, I'll be missing you walking around the parks while we're discussing all sorts of things. We've had a good chat over the last couple of years. But well done on your new role, and we look forward to seeing a bit more of you as time goes along. I mean, I'd like to bring on to the litter picking that was brought up. Obviously, we do see across Wickford and across parts of Crays Hill and Note Bridge to an extent, the pink bags are put down, and obviously with the community litter picking teams that are going on. So in terms of how, I know you're just 2 weeks into the job, but have you started to liaise with those litter picking teams, the Wickford Wombles and the Note Bridge litter pickers, who go out very frequently on their own, but also have their set? So I know Note Bridge is the last Sunday of every month, they have a large litter pick, and the Wombles normally have one on a Saturday that's evidenced with maybe 20, 30, 40 people turning up. They supplement what the council are doing, because I see the guy walking around in a high vis on the high street and in Wickford, and along Netherden Road and along Hodgson's Way. I've seen some bags there. Just on that basis, just one question: when they go out and do these bags and they leave them on the side to be picked up, how often are they picked up? Because I've seen bags that have been left for sort of 3-4 days before they're actually collected from the side of the grass verges.
Thanks, Councillor. I can't answer at this stage how often. I would like to say that they should be removed the same day. That would be my aim, that any bags that we've collected should be removed as soon as possible. I'll go back to route mapping. You know, part of that is our route mapping has got to work around support of our beat sweeps, the guys that leave them piles. So that will come as part, but the aim has got to be the day that we've piled up them sacks is the day that they're removed. That is the ultimate aim. For working with local volunteers and the volunteer groups, I mean, that's something I've always enjoyed. It's a passion of mine to work with the volunteer groups, and I'll continue to do that, and to continue and try and build upon it as well. So I hope that answers the question.
James?
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to that as well, obviously we've done a lot of work supporting and facilitating and enabling those community groups. I think they're a real source of not only community pride, but they promote good mental health. They promote people getting outdoors. We see lots of volunteer groups and people bringing along their kids to community litter picks and things like that. And whenever we've been approached, we've provided equipment, we've provided cleanups afterwards, we've provided health and safety guidance and risk assessments and training sessions and all those things. And that will continue. What I would also say is that I've been made aware that Clean Up UK, who are a charity who encourage people to take part in their groups and link them together, they are currently recruiting somebody to be an active coordinator for Basildon as well. So if members are obliged, I'll share the job advert for that. If there's somebody in the community who might be interested to help take that onto the next level, then I'll make sure that the link to that is shared within the minutes for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, what was the name of that group, please, James, just to clarify?
It's through Clean Up UK, who are a charity who work in this space. But I'll make sure that the invite is sent, the job advert is sent alongside the minutes for this. So I'll share that. Thank you.
Councillor Brockman?
Yeah, right. First off, can I make a suggestion that we actually don't keep going on about this, because each one of us knows shops where there's loads of rubbish all put outside. And a lot of the time it's the shopkeepers that are filling up the bins. You can see it if you go and have a look. So maybe a nice little letter out to everyone saying please don't fill up the bins with your rubbish, instead of employing someone like Biffa or whoever it is that comes and takes the shop waste away. And there's also, like as George was saying, there's the one on the Wick, the shops there. It is appalling, but that bin is being filled up by the shops, not the residents. It is awful. It really is. And also, the other thing I'd like to say is, can James or Rob please send us a list of who's actually responsible for what, please, on an email. So we've got their email addresses and their phone numbers, not just a generic one, but a direct line, please, because as councillors, it's really frustrating when we can't find who we've got to get hold of when we need to. Thank you.
You got a response to that, James, or can you supply that list? Or Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, sorry, in defence of some of the shops, don't tile them all with the same brush. No, Cosmos in particular, by Shamps Drive, I've actually seen them empty in the council bin. So they do the opposite, basically. They only do the one next to their shop, but they make sure it's clear. And yeah, so some, not all shops, basically.
Any more questions for James? Thank you very much, James and Rob, for your presentation. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you again in a future meeting. Right, item number 6 is community spotlight, which we started, and now all the other area committees are following. But we will. The community spotlight today is from Wickford Town Football Club. Kit Houghton is going to give us the lowdown on Wickford Football Club.
Hello, thank you for having me this evening. But I'll just introduce myself just to start off with. So, as I say, my name's Kit Houghton. I'm the Wickford Town Club Secretary. I've been working with Wickford Town for the last 5 years. Like anyone who's involved in grassroots football. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Kit, can you put your microphone closer to your mouth, please, so we can all hear you? Thank you, darling.
Sorry, is that better? Thank you. Okay, so I've been involved with Wickford Town for the last 5 years. I started off, as everyone does in grassroots football, as an unwilling volunteer and an enthusiastic parent who got dragged in from the sidelines to get involved. The club has been around since 1969. I'm sure most of you, or some of you, will be aware of that and have been involved and have been over to the site at Bartlett Park where we are now. Over the last 55 years, we've had 10,000 children come through our doors and be introduced to the wonderful world of grassroots football, and in a safe and nurturing environment. The club ethos has always been, certainly in the time that I've been there, we're not there to make great footballers. We're there to make great people through football. Okay, so we're not an elitist club. We're there to encourage people of all levels, all abilities, of all backgrounds to come and play football. And it's been a really refreshing, certainly from my point of view, over the last few years, seeing different people coming in from different areas and moving into Wickford, and the demographic of those people changing, and actually more people stepping forward from those diverse backgrounds, which I think has been certainly a real benefit to the club and to the community. So we are a registered charity. We are a 2-star affiliated club with the FA, which means that we have been recognised as being, as our commitment to the development of grassroots football through Essex, and we were one of the first clubs in Essex to be awarded the FA Charter Standard. So at present we have 38 youth football teams, approximately 400 children, and 2 men's football teams. There's one further stat which I think is really important, and that is we have 100 volunteers at the club. So that is men and women who are involved not just in the running of the teams, but also help with the ground maintenance, with the infrastructure, with the organisation of the club. And I think it's something, certainly from my point of view, having never properly volunteered for anything in my life. It's a real sense of community that we have been able to, you know, draw in a lot of people who are like myself, not necessarily always keen to get involved, but when they do, they actually find it's a fantastic environment for not just for their kids, but to give back to the community in a way that you don't necessarily get if you don't get involved in something like that. So, as I said, Bartlett Park is our home, which is just off the main Shopgate roundabout. We've been there for just over 10 years. We used to have grounds just off the South End Road, and then we moved to Bartlett Park. And what we want to do with Bartlett Park is we want to make it not just the home of Wickford Town, but also a sporting hub for the community. So some of you will be aware that we've been granted planning permission for 2 artificial football pitches over there, full-size 11-a-side pitches, and that is just one aspect of what we want to do. You know, we have a very large hall which is used as a community hall for dance classes, yoga classes. There are various meetings from other different charities like Mind. And what we want to do with the grounds as we expand is to really embed ourselves in the community as something where people of all walks of life, all ages and demographics can go. As part of the community work that we do, we work with different charities. We have a dedicated session for a charity called Myotis, which is primarily dealing with children with special educational needs and also ASD. So that is a safe environment for children who might not necessarily be able to play in a football team, but would like to be able to get out and be able to mix with other people of their own age and play football again in a nice, safe environment. We also run dedicated sessions for girls football through FA partnerships with Wildcats, and we also have several girls football teams as well at the club. We also link up with Beauchamp School, and we run various sports days there, not just for that school, but for several schools across the county. So that's kind of what we do. Obviously, we've got lots of big, exciting plans for the next 5-10 years. We're hoping to get approval for the first of the artificial pitches in the next couple of months, and that hopefully then will be in place by the end of this year. And then, you know, hopefully the sky's the limit.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions? Councillor Sargent?
I haven't got any questions, Chairman, but I just want to say, Kit, it's so wonderful to hear from volunteers. I've volunteered myself for years, and when I hear it and the story that you've told us this evening, and we had Myopus at the last meeting, and it was wonderful to hear them, and the fact that you're helping and working with those as well. It's wonderful because children, you're giving them a good start in life, aren't you? You know, they've got something to go out and do and meet friends, socialise. It's such a wonderful thing. Congratulations on what you're doing over at the Wickford Town Football Club, and thank you so much for coming along and telling us about your story this evening. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brockman?
Yeah, Kit, I'm going to tell you a little story. My husband was the same. He went over to football one day with the boy and ended up being the chairman of Crayford Arrows. And he built that up and he got them the ground, the pitch and everything done. It was wonderful to watch. And he died last year, and his legacy was that the ground's being named after him. And I just think it's wonderful. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Brockman. Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing site over there. I've been over there lots of times. I used to play table tennis in the club over there, and yeah, I know Clive Lodge as well. But interested really in the bigger plan, really, that possibly Basildon Council could, in partnership with them, put a sports centre there. I saw Clive Lodge before, and he was talking about maybe squash courts there and things like that. So that, I think that would be amazing if there's some sort of a joint initiative, basically. But Yeah, if anything like that could happen. And do you have a vets team at all for football?
So we have two men's football teams currently. We did have a vets team. It was one of our longest running teams, which was actually running for about 25 years. Unfortunately, they'd gone from sort of sevens all the way through to, under sevens all the way through to open age men's football and then into vets. But, eventually a lot of the players went off and had their own kids, and, it was hard bringing more of the vets players back in. But again, I think with the issue we've always had with Bartlett's Park is that there wasn't that pathway from youth football into adult open age football, in that we couldn't offer them 11-a-side football over there. With the hopefully with the approval of the 11-a-side pitches going through in the next couple of months, what that means is that you don't ever have to leave Bartlett Park. At the moment, as soon as you get to 11-a-side football, you have to go to Memorial Park, which, although the pitches are quite good over there, obviously the facilities, the changing rooms, the infrastructure isn't really there. With the plans that we've got in place, and as you said, the opportunity to not just host football, but to make Bartlett Park a multi-sport venue where there is tennis courts, squash courts, etc. That is something that we are really, really excited about, and something that we're really pushing for, and then it can encourage more people to come forward to play football, and also to get involved. And certainly would love to get vets back in. We did have a women's football team up until a couple of years ago, but again, because of the lack of facilities down at the park, where obviously female football is a key part of, you need to have separate dressing rooms, etc. We could no longer offer that. Bringing all of that back into Bartlett Park means that we can have a women's football team back there. We can offer more facilities and more sports, not just football, going forward.
Yeah, basically I was training with Basildon Town for a while with their vets team, so yeah, very interested in maybe getting a vets team over there again. That'd be brilliant. And also if there was maybe something towards walking football or something like that, maybe for the even older ones. But
yeah, so we do walking football on Monday nights over at Beauchamp School. So again, with our partnership with Beauchamps, is that we have training for our youth football teams during the week, as well as certain evenings dedicated to adult football, including walking football, and not just for men but for women as well. So it's I'm probably more inclined to do walking football myself, because I have two terrible knees now. I can't play football. I could never play football very well at the best of times, but I'm more of a referee these days. But certainly that is something geared for people who can't run around like they used to.
Councillor Myers?
I won't comment on your plans as such, because I do sit on the planning committee, so I wouldn't be allowed to do that. But obviously the work that you're doing in terms of Wickford Town Football Club is obviously amazing, and I'd just like to point out that there are a lot of groups, a lot of football clubs across the borough which do a tremendous amount of work with outreach to children, and you're part of them. So as part of your sort of community spotlight, it kind of also shows on the other groups as well of exactly what's of what you guys are trying to do. With the level of volunteering that's going on. I mean, there's a few. There's the so your Wickford Town Wickford Town Football Club. You've got the Wolves, Essex Royals. There's the Basildon FC. We're doing quite a lot of work over this as well. So I think everyone needs to be highlighted in this bit. But it's what you said tonight is exactly what they're also doing. But I think it's great to put a spotlight on community football and how it helps children, adults, and older people going forwards. So thank you very much for your presentation. But I can't comment on anything you're planning to do over on that site.
Councillor Ferguson, would you like to come
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the committee for your comments tonight and for inviting me along to be here tonight. It's an absolute privilege to be the Cabinet member with responsibility for sport taking place, and I've enjoyed travelling around the borough over the last 6 months, seeing the wide variety of different sports activities that are taking place. And to Councillor Myers' point, I think we've got an awful lot to be able to thank all of the grassroots football organisations across the borough for. Just picking up on some particular points within your presentation, and first of all, want to thank you for taking forward the unenviable task of being the club secretary. I know that's not an easy position to be able to take on, and that's almost another full-time job in itself being able to do. And I know that that's driven out of passion and love for the game, and being able to grow that for young people across the borough. And want to thank you personally, as well as thanking the wider club for the opportunities that you've been able to bring young people in Wickford to be able to take part in sport. I think the fact that the stat that you highlighted there, 100 volunteers, is absolutely incredible, and absolutely something we should be highlighting and should be celebrating. I think also really pleased to hear the comments that you made around the number of girls teams that you had. I think we've got an excellent opportunity with the success of the Lionesses from 2 years ago, and hoping that the Lionesses repeat that success this summer in Euro 2025 to be able to grow the girls game across the borough, and want to work with you to continue to do that. And one of the things that I've been particularly struck by in all the conversations with the voluntary and community sector over the last few months has been around the enthusiasm for kind of greater exposure for the work of all the voluntary clubs and activities, and I've been speaking to our communications team to see how we can enhance that. And I want to give you, from my portfolio's position, the commitment to be able to support the regular activities that you're currently running, and I think I'm probably just about eligible to take part in walking football, and look forward to giving that a try at some point in the future. But from me, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Hammond has come back again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, just one more little question. Basically, sometimes it's incredibly busy over there, which is not a bad thing, but with the parking, I wondered if there's any plans at all for it making the car park any bigger.
Yeah, so part of the planning that was agreed as part of our funding agreement, we have to expand the car park. We have actually cleared probably, if anyone's been over to Bartlett Park in the last 12 months, we probably cleared the space that we have for pitches ×4 in preparation for the 11-side pitches to go in. As part of that agreement, we've actually cleared what the car park will be, so there will be a substantial increase in the number of parking. Obviously, we are aware that that parking on match days is sometimes problematic, and that's not uncommon with grassroots football. But yes, there's a lot more parking coming in as part of that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. Very good. As I say, the idea of this is to spotlight communities, hence the name, Community Spotlight, and thank you for your presentation today. Thank you. Right, that's the last item on the agenda for today, so the meeting's closed. We have another one on the 5th of March.